Hi, welcome to Open Range. I am your host, Will Gardner, for the real estate segment this week. As we do every week, we get you in touch with real estate news, real estate topics, things that are very important to something that's probably going to be the biggest investment of your life. And if it's not for just for your home, maybe for your business too, commercial, land. There's so many different topics in real estate, and so we're going to cover those today, as we always do once a week. And so, and usually our segment re-airs on a Friday, and so we like to get you primed for the weekend if you're buying or selling, and so that is something that I think is going to be very helpful to you as you're looking for properties that are coming on the market. So this week's topic is going to be about the power of a good realtor in terms of contractor referrals. So you're gonna want to make sure when you find your realtor to help you with the journey of purchasing a property, or even when you're selling, or even seriously, even when you're not even buying or selling, it's always great to have a good relationship with a realtor so that you can make sure that they can help you along the way, because there's so many things pre-selling, pre-buying, and even in the middle of everything where issues with your home, problems with your home, or things that you could take advantage with your property that, and I say property because it might be your business, it might be land, right? Things that you can take advantage of, and there's so many different things that we can help you with, even when you're not in the middle of buying and selling. And a good agent, a good realtor is going to help you with those kind of connections and fill in the gaps throughout your life of owning different pieces of property. So get a fantastic relationship with the realtor who's going to help you along the way and get those different problems that you're going to have needing to get solved. For example, issues with your home, anything from taxes and tax issues to how can you maximize investments, all those questions in preparation, because it's going to change the way you think as you move through life and the different hurdles that you come across. If you know about those hurdles before you get there, instead of just figuring out the moment it happens, you can plan, you can prepare, and things are going to be so much better for you. So, contractor referrals. This is how agents can really help you. So let's get into it. The first thing to do, of course, if you're looking to find a realtor, make sure that you're kind of putting some tests out there to make sure that realtor is really going to be able to help you. So ask your realtor for referrals. So there's plenty of different professionals that you could ask a realtor for a referral for. Realtors have the most access than probably any other profession to so many different professions, because we need to deal with so many different types of issues, anywhere from contractors, anything from concrete, electrical, plumbers, all of those builders, all those sorts of contractors that you might need at any point in time in your life. So any of those, in addition to things that you may not even think about. For example, lawyers. We have a lot of issues that come up that have legal implications, legal questions, anywhere from understanding the covenants to knowing where your property boundaries are, surveyors, to taxes, CPAs, knowing how, like, all of those professions. And sometimes not every realtor knows every single profession, but of course the more seasoned agent you have, the more of a professional they are, the more they're going to be able to give you a lot more in-depth referrals, because they'll just have a lot more experiences. So, I mean, for example, in any particular year, I might have a referral 5 to 10 different times to a lawyer. And so obviously we might have carpet cleaners, maids that come in, clean the house, home cleaners, anything, even things with the basement, subcontractors to fix issues with the basement. So we're going to go all to that. So ask your realtor. And by the way, call and text if you have any questions. We're going to have a couple questions that we're going to put on the screen here from viewers. And so we're going to answer a couple of those questions throughout the segment. One of the segments we had in the past was estates and dealing with estates. Those are property that is being sold, real property that's being sold by family members that they need guidance. So we're going to jump into actually some of those questions right now. I think if we could put the first one up here. This is from one of our viewers. How can I help my family avoid breaking up when selling our parents' real estate? So again, these are questions that we can get for viewers. Please feel free to submit your own if you'd like. So the question, how can I help my family avoid breaking up when selling my parents' real estate? Boy, if I could answer that in one sentence, I would, and I would gladly do it. But this is more of a process thing, and the first thing that I would do, is, again, I keep harping on is when you get someone, a professional, a realtor who's going to be able to help you and your family navigate that. You need someone with people skills. You need someone who's able to talk and communicate, and those are very delicate conversations. When you're listing a property, for example, you're not even just navigating the conflict if you're helping a buyer and a seller and negotiating that. You're negotiating between inside of a family, and so like the siblings themselves, they need communication, and then you have the spouses of those siblings and all of those people. It gets kind of, it can be very tense and very, the first thing that I would say is keep everything dry, right? And I was actually thinking on the way to the studio here that one of the things that I feel like in our family that we try to do is it's not necessarily what you say and how you say it. I mean, that is important, extremely important, but it's also what you don't say when you're upset, and it's what you don't say when you're not happy or things are going right. And you find ways of not saying things that are inflammatory, right? Like, so some of the things, just keeping it dry would be one of the things that I would do to help with your family. Another trick to it too is I remember my mom when we were young. When we would split up something, we would have to share things because I'm the oldest of 9, so we'd have to split up something that, whether it was a cherished dessert that we only had a few slices of, like some very delicious pie. And so my mom would say, well, you guys cut it in half, and then whoever cuts it, the other person gets to decide which half. So if you're the person that was cutting it, you had to be really careful not to give too much of the pie to someone else, right? But no, we did. It was we had a great family life. It wasn't that we didn't fight that much over it. But that's kind of one insight that I take into helping families is one person kind of be in charge of figuring out how it's evenly divided, and then the person who's doing that is going to elevate to the leader. And the leader, I'll just say it in so many real estate deals that I have, the leader ends up kind of getting the short end of the stick. And I think maybe the first thing to think about, or maybe the second thing, since I said the first, the second thing is to really guard your expectations. Is if you're going to be the one that's going to be taking the lead and helping the family getting the estate in order, take the lead, and you got to just carry the cross and minimize the expectations. Minimize your own expectations of what you're going to get. And I think setting your expectations up front, that you're probably not going to get as much as you want, that's going to solve a lot of heartache. It's going to take a lot of stress out of your life. And I know that's maybe not amazing news for you. That's maybe not a secret solution, but it's certainly going to help you in your process as you're digesting that. So those are a couple things. Again, get a realtor who's going to be able to navigate those conversations. Someone who's positive, uplifting, who communicates very clearly, communicates frequently, and is always making sure that everyone understands what's going on in the transaction. The communication is the most important thing of that. So make sure that's right. Since we have the same topic, let's just go a couple other questions, and then we're gonna get back to our topics of referrals. So second question we have is, how much work should we do to prepare our parents' home for sale? So this is a great question that I do get commonly. You are not looking to fix up that property. Please don't do a lot of repairs. And it depends on I should say everything does depend too on the quality of the property. If your parents having just an incredibly beautiful property and everything was manicured and taken care of, and there's one thing that's glaring weakness that needs to get fixed, and to be functional, that's something that you would fix, right? Functional maybe is something, one of the tricks I tell my sellers when they list is, like, sometimes I say, make sure if there's a problem that you don't fix it so we have something for the inspector to find. Because if it's not something easy for the inspector to find, then the inspector will keep digging and digging until they do find something. So let's just say, for example, sometimes with the new roof, I'll tell my sellers, don't replace the roof. Let it be there, and if it's obvious that it needs to get fixed, fine. Let it get fixed. Let the buyer see it that needs to be fixed. And as the agent, then what I do is I say, hey, what do you think of the house? The buyer says, well, they love the house, but the roof needs to get repaired. I say, you know what? I think the sellers will fix it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty dang sure. Just assume it'll get fixed, right? And so the buyers already feel like they're getting some negotiating. If you're a seller and you've already fixed the house and fixed the roof, now the buyer doesn't even appreciate it because you fixed it. So the buyer almost feels like they're getting $10,000, $15,000 in value because now you fixed the house. So there's some things like that as you're strategizing how to fix your house and what to do with your parents' homes, that's one tip. We'll get back to the second part of that question after the break, and more regarding referrals after the break. Welcome back again to Open Range. Your host today, Will Gardner, is my name, and feel free to reach out to me at any time for any questions you might have, questions you could bring to the show, and love to answer them on the show. My number is there at the bottom of the screen, 701-388-6171. Text or call if you have any questions or things you would like answered by a real estate professional. So today we are talking, again, continue our conversation from the last segment about referrals, and in particular, how those referrals help you as a consumer, and what we do and how that's important and relevant to all the real estate needs you have. Before we get into that, we were talking about the last question that we had on our on this from a viewer here was how much work we should do to prepare our home, our parents' home, for sale. There's the question. So that's the question we've been discussing here. We're talking about what to fix up, what not to fix up, and leaving off at the end with maybe finding some things that need to get fixed that wait till you get a buyer through there, and then they can see what you're promising to fix. And things that are functional typically are things that I think a buyer can say, you know what, I love the property. Yeah, I'd like to get the roof fixed. I'd like to, the door handle was loose. I'd fix the door handle, but because that doesn't set a good tone. But if there's some issues, like maybe one of the blinds don't work or stuff like that, again, I leave those things to maybe to negotiating, or again, if you can have those things say that the seller will fix them, in some ways, that's going to make a buyer see that you are giving value after it's listed. So there's some things that you do want to get fixed for sure, and that's why you have a realtor walk through your property and give you case by case. Yes, fix this. No, don't fix that. But by and large, if you're looking at your parents' estate, and a lot of homes that are estates, a lot of these homes are usually homes that have been neglected for a long time. Maybe they've been maintained, just not updated, sometimes not updated or maintained. And so it's going to really depend on a case-by-case basis. But what we don't want to see happen is you have old cupboards, old flooring, and now you're going to see if you want to put granite countertop. Now you have an update on the property, and the rest of it doesn't even make sense. And maybe this is a lot more, I guess, reasonably understood from you as if you're looking at this from a buyer's perspective. But if you look around look away from the TV for a second, look around your house and see what is all, updated in your house and what is not, and you start looking at it from your perspective as a seller's perspective, it's very easy to say, well, I would fix that, and then I would sell it. And I would always be cautionary and say just talk to your realtor first to make sure that you're getting guidance for them so that you understand exactly what to fix and what not to fix. What you don't want to have is something brand new in the middle of something that's not. And now instead of your countertops looking great, what you've just done is showed how much the rest of the house doesn't look great. So make sure you do the proper commensurate updates. You do not want to do all the update, or, one update and not update the rest. So that's a great question from our viewers. And I think we'll just go to the third question, then we'll get back on topic here for referrals. So finally, this is again regarding estates and what you can do with estates. What documents should we look for in preparation to sell our parents' home? So a couple things that you should probably think about. First of all, you might ask mom or dad if they have a copy of an abstract, well, not a copy, the abstract in their property, or if they have title insurance. Now, I'm just going to throw out rough numbers here, and this is not 100% accurate, but this will give you a guiding understanding. It's not 100% accurate all the time, but basically, if you have a newer home that's probably older than, I'd say, the 90s, probably for sure in the, newer than 2000, those homes probably don't have an abstract. They most likely have title insurance. Unless it was a home purchased on, say, some farmland or that sort of thing, older properties are going to have abstracts. And sometimes those abstracts have been updated, and sometimes they haven't been. Sometimes they've been updated, they have them, but they also bought title insurance. We'll go into all that in a different segment, but you're looking for an abstract, which is it's like a legal bound. It doesn't fold like this. It flips over like that, so it goes back and forth. And it's bound on the top, like a legal size document. Usually, I don't know, depending on the thickness, there's a little bit of thickness to it, and like a legal pad. Usually they'll be stored in a safe or someplace where other documents are stored for safekeeping. To fix those or to replace those can sometimes be thousands of dollars. So make sure they have an abstract, especially if it's an older property. If it's a new property, it might be title insurance. And in any case, when you talk to a realtor and you get ready to get listed, they'll give you some guidance more detailed guidance, I guess, on your scenario and your situation and kind of what you're looking at, because sometimes you may not need to have that. So good question on what documents you need. You should also know the type of how your parents have held their title, whether that's tenants in common or joint tenancy. There's, and whether or not that's, if it's sitting in a trust. There's lots of different ways that your parents, and I say estate, so at that point, is there a personal representative? There's lots of different questions. If it's in the estate, then that's a whole, if your parents have passed, whether there's a power of attorney, there's just a lot of stuff there. But in terms of like the documents for the property, you're looking for an abstract or evidence of title insurance. So those are a couple things to look for. So let's get back to our topic du jour. We are talking about contractor referrals. We started by saying that it's really important to have the referrals because you are looking as a consumer. Obviously, you want referrals because you're looking to realtors who have experience, who know about the ins and outs of a particular problem. The ins and outs of a person who will be able to solve your problems, not necessarily solving the problem, but the ins and outs. And depending on your realtor and how well-versed they are in the different topics and well-rounded, they might be able to give you enough guidance. And this is where realtors have to stay in their lane, right? Like, we can't give you guidance beyond our profession. So if you do have a realtor who has experienced in contracting and some constructions like myself, then you're going to have maybe a realtor who can guide you a little bit more along the way in terms of what you can know before you need to call a contractor. And every good realtor is going to know as soon as they're working outside of their profession, you immediately need to realtor needs to say, look, I'm not licensed in this area. This is not my profession. Here's a professional who can answer your question. So it's very important for realtors to be able to stay in their lane. So obviously buyers and homeowners are looking to us to get guidance on referrals because of our experience and knowledge. We've had, obviously, as we constantly refer different professions to different people, we're getting feedback after those to learn from how that went. We're hearing in our office how other people and other agents have had experience with different contractors. Oh, this person's the best. And so they'll give us those and we'll talk amongst ourselves. The other reason why people will ask us for referrals too is, I'll just be candid, I think people like to look for leverage. If something goes wrong, well, Will knows him, Will can talk to him and try to smooth things over, or try to make us whole again if something went wrong with that contractor. So those are going to be a couple different reasons. What goes wrong with referrals sometimes? And I think, if in the past year, I haven't had too much bad luck with a contractor, but every once in a while, there'll be a contractor that may not be a great fit. And I think anytime there's, I would say 95% of the time, maybe almost close to 100% of the time, everything's right. And the reason why it goes right is because myself or another realtor is going to approach it from clients' expectations. There's not a one-size-fits-all for every contractor. The reason why the contractors are so diverse is because there's so many diverse problems and expectations. You have contractors who focus on high quality, and so those people, they're going to have a different price point, right? They also may have, because they're higher quality, they're going to be less available. And so the joke that I've heard from realtors is, well, I can refer somebody that's quick, that does a great job, and that's cheap, but they may not be the same person, right? So one of the things you might want to ask a question, I'm looking for somebody cheap and quick, or I'm looking for someone with quality and reasonable price, right? Maybe not speed. Or if you want all three, then you're going to have to find maybe somebody that's more middle ground, more balanced out of the three. But very rarely you're going to find all three of those in one. And if you do hold on to them, they're excellent. As a matter of fact, I hear sometimes realtors, they're going to want to have their contractors prioritize their clients, so they may not tell other realtors about their really great contractors. But most of the time, the realtors that we find is they're pretty open, and we like to share and like to see each other have success in our own business too. So we do like to do that. So remember, it's really important in order to avoid problems with referrals, is to make sure if your realtor is not asking about your expectations about speed, quality, and availability, that you are telling them the priority of what's important for you. So keep those in mind as benefits. We're going to talk more about contractor referrals after the next break. Welcome back to our final segment of Open Range. Will Gardner, your host here. We are talking about how you can maximize the power of a great realtor with contractor referrals. So we've been talking about how you can leverage your realtor to get the most out of the referral, the contractor that you're trying to hire and get on board. So there's going to be some things that you're going to kind of vet to make sure that the referral is a good match. And so again, if your realtor is not communicating the details, first of all, make sure the realtor has contractors that they're able to refer to you. A sign of a good realtor is they're going to always have people that they can refer. Also ask why they're referring that contractor, that specific contractor. If they're just giving a name and not telling you why, that should be a red flag that you need to make sure you are getting a good referral. So make sure you get that, and then also make sure that the person that's referring is knowing why and what exactly that particular contract does well, what that contractor does well. Are they good at communicating? Are they good at with the price point? Are they good with speed? Are they very responsive? There's so many different aspects to it. Know the kind of person that contractor is, and that person that's referring, if they're not giving you that information, you have to kind of wonder how good that referral is going to be. So a couple other points here. Contractors, this is another thing to keep to consider here too. When a contractor is referred by a realtor, oftentimes they're being prioritized over a regular homeowner buyer. Why? Because typically when it's coming from a realtor, they're obviously giving a lot of referrals, and they want to make sure that they're being responsive and treating that realtor right, because they're constantly getting new business from that realtor. The other reason is because if there's closings coming up and it's a very timely need to have something fixed or a problem solved, even if it's not a physical contracting thing, it could be a legal thing. Everything's time sensitive. People will have their moving trucks all loaded and ready to go. We can't wait a couple weeks for availability for a contractor. So that's another reason why contractors will prioritize realtors. When to engage a contractor, this is going to depend on certain situations. I always tell my clients that it's good to get a quote up front to know what you're dealing with. So especially if we're in the middle of an inspection phase and we're trying to figure out if we need to get a contractor, the time to contact them is as soon as possible, because you might need some time, they might need some time to get a calendar date open for you. So keep that in mind, is that if you don't realize it already, how scarce and how hard it is sometimes to get a contractor, get in touch with them early on. Treat those contractors with respect and give them a lot of deference. Remember that they're doing the work for you. And I know there are other contractors out there, but they're contractors. You want to have really good relationships with them, so treat them with great respect. And especially in this day and age when it seems like less and less people want to do the hard physical work and even just work in general, right? Like it's kind of surprising how people they want work served to them on a platter. And so there's a reality there, especially if they're really good, that they may have some expectations of, well, I'm not just gonna deal with this person, so I'm just not going to respond to them quickly. So if you are coming across as a great buyer and as someone that is someone they want to work with, it's not even just all about money. It's a lot of times can be about how well you're responding, how well you're communicating, your positivity, how much I guess you're nagging, right? Remember, we're in a different age than we used to, and it was very clear to me. I just came back from a conference, talked to a couple different realtors, and I'd been I sell a product to realtors that helps them get more clients, and a lot of the response was from a lot of people was like, well, if they don't do this and if they're not going to be willing to do this, I don't even want them as a client. And I don't know if it's the fact that I have 7 kids that I will work extremely hard for any client that I get, but I was just amazed at how many people are like, well, I don't want to work with them. I won't work with them. That's not something that I even understand. I can't even think about how someone would want to act like that. But that's the reality of a lot of people, a lot of workers out there, a lot of contractors. I don't know if it's just the fact that they're too busy or they don't really care if they make enough money or a lot of money. It's just you see it so many times. You'll wave money in front of somebody and they don't care. And they care. They just don't care about money. They may care more. You get to find the thing that motivates them. So it may be how you're communicating what you want done. There's a lot of different aspects and art form to that. So that's a little bit of a side note to how, when you're communicating them, how you're engaging with them, when you're engaging with them, with the contractor to have the best results. So that's kind of a little bit about after the referral, right? Getting a free quote. Don't be afraid. I mean, even though I did say that a lot of contractors don't want to work, there are many that want work, and they want good work. So they're willing to come out and do a free quote, and so make sure it's something that you would probably want to purchase, right? And you don't want to just waste somebody's time, but don't be afraid at the same time to get a quote, even though you're not sure you're going to buy. That's why you're getting a quote. That's why you're getting an estimate. So quotes and estimates are good to have before you get done with your inspection phase, because you really want to know as a buyer where you stand and how much things are going to cost. Referrals. So one of the things I want to compare this to is online versus, so online referrals, and when I say like online services like Google reviews or even is it Jenny's List? Not Jenny's List. And Angie's List, yes. Yeah, on Craigslist too. Angie's List has a list of contractors, and they'll have, a list on there, and you have all these, you have AI. So what makes a realtor different? It's those first things we talked about, right? Like at the end of the day, my clients look me in the eye and said, Will, you referred this guy to me, and they didn't do what they said they're going to do. Or, so we have, a good realtor is going to have that burden, and that is going to have that empathy and is going to know that expectation going into making a referral. And so that's something that just remind, when you were talking to AI, one of the things AI will tell you if it makes a mistake is, oh, good catch. I'm like, good catch? You just gave me the wrong answer, an answer that I was planning on acting on, right? And so obviously as human beings, and as we fight these, make the case for why we, I think there's, some I guess depressing feelings, from people that AI is gonna take over some of these roles. Well, one of the things that I think is gonna stand true is people at the end of the day are gonna wanna look you in the eye and have that relationship and know that if you told them something that your word is important and that you have stuff to back up. And I'm not going to be able to tell my seller, oh, you hired that contractor and that sheetrocker and they put in your sheetrock wrong. Oh yeah, I guess good catch that you caught that they hadn't done it before, right? That doesn't work. AI might work for it. It's not going to pass muster with a human being. So that's a great part of why it is important to have of that contact with that realtor to give you that referral, right? Almost doesn't need to be said, but it's a word of encouragement to those people out there that in whatever profession you have, that people are still going to want people. They're not going to just want to read something and go off of that faith. They will if they have nothing else to go off of. So if you don't have a realtor, good luck, right? You're kind of on your own. We had talked about network of referrals, so other agents can help. As if I don't have a referral, I'll be reaching out to other agents, and they do the same to me, and finding good people. We like to keep our contractors employed. So even though we do like to kind of sometimes keep the good ones to ourselves, or the really, really, really good ones, I'd say 99% of the time we're more than excited to give those referrals out of those other contractors, because we want to see them succeed, and we want to see those contractors do well. So that's something to keep in mind too, is we can use each other. And then when we're making the referral, we want this to be a positive experience and a great win for both that contractor and that buyer, or that customer who's purchasing the service. We want both of them to have a good experience, and if we're not, we don't want to make that referral, because if that goes well, if that referral goes well, it's going to be like, hey, Will solved a problem for me, or Will gave me business, right? And so both of those things are very positive for the growth of my business and other realtors' business. But again, you do need to make sure you're finding a realtor who actually does care about that cares about the reputation, and that cares about making those connections and hoping they go well, instead of just wiping their hands and saying, this is not our problem. One thing I will point out and emphasize is that whenever a referral is made from a realtor to a buyer or a customer, that referral is simply just a referral. It is not we are not, as realtors, part of that contract. We are simply giving our recommendations, but obviously what's going on is a contract between the buyer of the service and the contractor. Very important. That is not something that a contractor, that is not something that a buyer's agent or the realtor is privy or part of the contract. That contract is between those two parties. So as much as we try to get you going as much as possible. At the end of the day, when you're engaging with a contractor, the realtor is not part of that contract. You just keep that in mind because that's very important. There are two people involved, and those two parties are not the realtor. So with that, we hope you enjoyed the segment this episode this week, and hope this gives you some insights on how realtors can help just in another aspect through the referral systems that we provide. We hope you have a good week. See you next week.